When I went to school in England at the age of 16, my art teacher said, look, Kjetil, you're probably not going to become a great artist, but you could maybe become an architect. So since the age of 16, everything I worked towards was actually to try to become an architect. My name is Kjetil Thorsen. I'm the co-founding partner of Snøhetta, and this is the Architects series. When I finished my gymnasium back in Norway, I applied for all kinds of schools around Europe. I didn't get into any of them. My grades were really terrible, so and even I applied to the School of Architecture in Trondheim here in Norway, and they wouldn't let me in. But I've since then become an honorable doctor at this school, and I had a great pleasure of telling them that you didn't let me in, but now I'm an honorable doctor in your own school, only the second in architecture after Alva Aalto, which then puts me into this position of saying, okay, maybe I'm matured very late. So I spent 8 years studying architecture and arts, came back to Oslo, said, okay, I can't work with anyone, we have to start on our own. And then from 85 to 87, I worked on my own round. And then we got this group of people together to establish the first go at Snøhetta in 87, and then the shareholding company in 89.
My name is Elin Helgeland Nilsen. I'm the Group Communication Director in Snøhetta, working with all different studios around the world. And I've been in Snøhetta since 2007. The journey of Snøhetta since 89, it's been quite a journey. So right now we're 7 studios around the world. We're located in San Francisco, in New York, in Paris, Oslo, Innsbruck, Hong Kong, Adelaide, and in addition we have a separate discipline, Snøhetta Design, which are working with graphic design and digital design. So that's sort of like been a growth over the years. In addition to that, I think we're present with different projects in most regions in the world. So currently we have approximately 40 projects under construction, and then up to 300 projects on the drawing table.
In 87, with the name of Snøhetta, it was established because there is a mountain area in Norway called the area of Dovre, D-O-V-R-E. And the highest peak in this mountain area is called Snøhetta. But at the same time, there is a beer place downtown Oslo, which is called the Hall of Dovre. And our first office was on top of this beer place. It even had a back stair leading down into the pub. So we said, okay, we're not the peak Snøhetta in the landscape of Dovre, but we are the peak above the beer places Dovrehallen in Oslo. So let's call ourselves Snøhetta, and that's how it happened.
When I started, I think we were around 50, and today we're around 330. And back then again we were at 2 studios and now 7, so definitely changed over the years. I think with that comes the change, comes the growth, the number of projects, and it's been kind of like an organic growth in Snøhetta. It's not like taking up the map and saying we want to establish just for the fun of things, but it's been looking at opportunities. And we're a value-based company, and we try to portray and infuse those values both as us as a company, but through the projects.
My name is Jenny Blondina Oselsen. I'm a landscape architect and I'm a partner in Snøhetta. Snøhetta started with landscape architects and architects from day one. It was actually more landscape architects than architects. So this collaboration between, you can call it multidisciplinary, I mean it's same, but I would say that Snøhetta's really knowledge about site and context and the way you look into a project or build structure to a site and a landscape that's also always been core of the projects. And I will say we still do that in the same way. But of course also we have been evolving pretty large. It was international from day one, which was not common in Norway at that times. And of course now everything is global, so that has changed. But with our offices around the globe and the possibility we have to work around the globe, that may also be an introduction to landscape into the built architecture.
The philosophy of our beginnings, maybe I felt that very strongly today as we were gathering online all our studios around the world, where collaboration between the different professions, the different approaches, the different contextual situations, the different projects around the world, all of a sudden being shared. Because I think at the very beginning of Snøhetta, we were looking at two major things. One was the collaboration between architecture and landscape architecture. We had felt for a long time that landscape architecture was sort of the side result of a possible architecture. If there were any money left in a project, you would maybe be able to plant a tree or two at the end of an architectural project, which then turned our approach of architecture into a situation where we couldn't really look at the totality of solutions. So we started including landscape architecture and architecture into one. That was number one. Number two was we were looking at a report that came out of the UN, which was called Our Common Future, which was the first UN report dealing with three definitions of sustainability. One was social sustainability, the other one was environmental sustainability, and the third was economic sustainability. So in effect, we based our Snøhetta trans-professional way of dealing with things on these two items. Cross-collaboration between professions, and at the same time, our approach to how we could actually deal with social sustainability at the foremost at the beginning of Snøhetta, and how we could implement that into physical environments.
My name is Lina Åndal-Reien. I work as a content and editorial lead here at the group communications team. The internal values are very much the same as the external values. It's a value-driven company. It's been like that ever since the start, based on the UN Brundtland Commission report on sustainability that came out in 1987. So it's all founded on that. That was social sustainability, and then later on environmental sustainability as well. But the humanistic values that Snøhetta were based on are still present in everything we do. In all the projects, we try to drive social change or environmental change and create value for the people who are going to be using our buildings and products and public spaces.
When we started developing Snøhetta as a shareholding company in '89, we had just won a big competition, which was the Library of Alexandria. And this library gave us the opportunity to investigate a lot of the things that we were talking about at the beginning of the establishment of Snøhetta, and expanding our professional input even further into interior architecture and product design and furniture design. This was a big international competition which was organized by the UNESCO and the government of Egypt, trying to pinpoint the sort of activities that would happen in the Mediterranean region, on the northern coast of Africa towards Europe, where most likely parts of the old ancient Library of Alexandria had been located. So we won this competition in 1989, and it gave us the opportunity to start deep diving into what social contexts, situations like educational buildings and cultural buildings like libraries might mean for the overall public, for the population in a city like Alexandria. The concept was simple. It was based on time. Like a tilted surface, starting underground, cutting through the ground, and going above ground. And by that, you could almost compare it to the movement of the sun. The sun coming up behind the horizon, going into zenith, and then going down behind the horizon towards the evening. And all of a sudden, you had this time lapse of possibilities in a frozen object. And this frozen object was surrounded by stone walls where letters gathered from all over the world should be engraved in order for people to catch some understanding of what that library was telling you on a global basis. Existing languages, old languages, and maybe even some interpretation of new computer languages was included on the inscriptions of this wall. And it's, since then, been a success in Alexandria. It never closed during the Arabic Spring. People were protecting it, holding hands around the building, making sure that what they felt was their building was actually kept open during the Spring Revolution. Partially, they probably felt it was their building because we had engaged the communities, the professional communities, the production lines, with a 50% Egyptian portion and a 50% foreign portion. As we had just opened the Library of Alexandria, we were fortunate to win the international competition of the National Opera and Ballet in Oslo. And this time it was a project at home, far away from Alexandria, with different conditions sort of pushing it. But there were some generic elements that we were carrying on from the Library of Alexandria. We had for a long time been working on these oblique surfaces that are actually either cutting into the ground or cutting into different elements. So the Opera House developed as a large public plaza, oblique, slanting from 32 meters above the water into the fjord of Oslo. This kind of white marble carpet that became publicly accessible. And similarly to the Library of Alexandria, we were trying to portray the possibility of lowering the threshold for the public to enter an elitist institution like an opera house. We wanted to change the public. We wanted to open it for the next generation. We wanted to make it easy to get to. Which means that if you can walk on the roof, the slanted roof, you can also own it. It's like me sitting on this chair right now. When I'm sitting on this chair, it's my chair. When I get off the chair, it goes back to the belonging of Snøhetta. So there is a logical connection point between intimacy and touch between an object and a human. The roof of the Opera House is covered with this fantastic Italian marble. You know, when you go to Carrara, you think there's snow in the mountains, but it's actually the white marble of Carrara. And we went all the way into a small quarry called La Facciata, where we picked the areas where we wanted the marble to come from for the roof of the Opera House. And you might not know, but marble is an unfinished stone. It has an inner tension. It's still developing to become a really hard stone. And this inner tension gives it, like glass or crystal, sound. If you hit a piece of marble, it goes like bling. If you hit a piece of granite, it goes like, there's no sound, it's dead. But marble has music. So you put this Italian marble to cover it. And many people mistake it for being similar to an iceberg. It's got nothing to do with an iceberg. It's got to do with music.
From an architectural design perspective, communication is key because you need to be able to explain your design, your thoughts, your values. So in Snøhetta, we are working as one. Even though we're 7 studios, we have a split of marco managers working in the different regions. I'm working across those regions, and we're using obviously social media, magazines, books, exhibitions, many tools to portray our projects. And it's a combination of topics we find interesting, and we use our tools, our websites, social media to do that.
Communications internally is very important. Obviously now we're back to the office, but we have been through a long time of working from home, seeing each other on screen or talking to each other on the phone. So it's really nice to be back in the office and see each other live again, because you can't really compete with that, the interaction and the conversations you have live and the work that you get to do and the ideas that spring out. So we're lucky to be a team here in Oslo working on communications. Elin, Morten, who's on holiday, and myself. So we are part of the group communications team, but we also have marketing and communications managers in each studio. So we have one here in Oslo and Mali, and then all the other studios have marketing and communications or people dedicated to communications.
Communication is many things, but it's definitely the visual and the words. And you need to be good at the visuals. And I think many architectural companies naturally find that they are. But equally, you need to be good with words. You need to find the words that the people in front of you understands, and they need to tell the same story. They can't be in conflict, and I find that maybe challenging sometimes, that the visuals are saying one thing and the words are saying something else. So finding the right balance of being truthful in what you're trying to achieve with your architecture and design, and portray it in the right manner to make it understandable.
After many years of involving ourselves deeply into social sustainability issues, accessibility, understanding of how buildings could influence society, how you could open up functions to different and new publics, looking at the next generation, we started about 10 or 15 years ago to get more and more involved into environmental sustainability of buildings. We set out together with a group of contractors, lobbyists, engineers, developers, to create what we call the Powerhouse Constellation. The intention of the Powerhouse Constellation was to create CO2 neutral buildings. Neutral not only in the consumption of the energy that you have during a lifespan of the building, but including all the CO2 equivalents in the use of materials, the production of the elements, the transport of these things to site, the construction itself, then of course the consummation of energy, heating, cooling, electricity, but also the maintenance of the building. And looking as a final end at the recycling and the CO2 equivalents of recycling all the materials of a building like that based on a period of 6 years. So that gave us a full, complete understanding of the full CO2 equivalence of a building like this. And right now we have 5 powerhouses ongoing where we're starting to measure the effect of our local energy production combined with the calculations of the CO2 over a period of 6 years. And we know that in certain situations we are actually producing more energy than we calculated, and maybe we can pay back even faster than the 60 years that we have accounted for. And I think for us now, with these 5 examples that we have, we're starting to gather enough information to know that you don't really need to invent too many new things in order to get to a CO2 neutral building. It's enough to use the technologies that we already have at hand, and just combining them in a sensible manner, we can definitely reach much lower CO2 footprints of new buildings than what we have in most of the building industry that we see today. Since the very beginning of Snøhetta, we found pleasure in inventing words and phrases of things to try to describe what we're doing to ourselves as much as trying to describe what we're doing for others. We have singular in the plural, which means that it's me as a person contributing into a large collaborative, but everything I do contributes to the community. Lately, for the last 5 years, we've also proclaimed that architecture might be seen as the art of prepositions. Art of prepositions means that everything is depending on where I have my body, where I have my eyes, in relationship to something else. Am I in front of, behind, under, above, sideways of, and so forth. So if you take prepositions in nature in relationship to the human body, all prepositions in a language will be at hand. The more prepositions you can introduce into architecture, the closer you are to the emotional connection of nature. So for the Times Square in New York, we were locating people into the city where before there had only been cars. We were locating people in a new position, in a new perception.
Times Square project was also what was called reconstruction. The urban fabric is definitely already there. And there have been a discussion in New York, the city department, about is it possible to go from this car-based streetscape, which is crazy with all the people around the year and 24/7, to be a pedestrian zone. Is it even possible to change that habit? And then on the other side was also people living, the New Yorkers, they hated Times Square. I mean, it was a tourist trap. So we looked into the bigger scale, zoomed out to the city scale, because I mean the street grid is, I mean, the grid system with a 90-degree street, you have and then you have Broadway that goes in this long diagonal through, just cut through the whole thing. So orientation was one of the key issues. And then come from a dark spot to a light spot, which also is light during nighttime because of all the commercials. So then make a guidance and then try to change the behavior from somebody just pushing you forward to a place you even could have a slow space. So the orientation, the way of behaving for people to walk and maybe even be able to sit, and also transformation from a streetscape to anything else. They said it will be hundreds of events during the year, like in 20 minutes you could do anything.
So also the benches that we created, the flow of the carpet and how these things were happening, people started standing on top of the benches most of the time instead of sitting down, because they wanted to get their eyes slightly higher to change the perspective. You know, we as human beings are always, the horizon is always with us where our eyes are. So our personal horizon is always in the middle through our eyes. So if I'm 100 meters up, my horizon is with me 100 meters up. So this is the same with individuals traveling in looking at their own position in relationship to their environment. So opening up new positions for people in New York gave a new kind of ownership, a new kind of view of New York to the New Yorkers, not only to tourists. And that gave us the possibility of expanding massively. With this knowledge from Times Square, the public spaces that we're creating, how we furnish them, what kind of opportunities of use you give the people walking through within these spaces, we introduced into what we now look at when it comes to future neighborhoods and future developments of urban planning and what urban planning could actually mean. In the area ex Macello in Milan, the former slaughterhouse area is being established as a new urban development. With all these main goals now all of a sudden being implemented inside one project, not only climate and CO2, yes, for sure. Biodiversity, yes, for sure. Human interactivity and social connections, yes, for sure. Transport, energy production, everything coming into one holistic aspect of the challenges that we set out to deal with. And everything expressed through the reuse, partially, of all the buildings, slaughterhouses where animals used to be sort of killed, now becomes the opposite. It becomes the social space for the future public of Aix-Marseille. So this collaboration with the City of Milan and the EU Commission and Green Cities Development is extremely important to us because it puts inside the EU program the perspectives that you need to include into the future development of an area like this in focus. It tells you exactly what you have to do in order to achieve it, from transport to biodiversity, to energy production, to social use, to shared use. So all of a sudden, these halls where animals were slaughtered now become a place for people to meet, interact, and they come to life in a completely new manner. And we believe quite strongly that this interaction between architecture and us as humans, nature, biodiversity, is at the core of what we need to deal with in the future. Snøhetta is an example of collective thinking in architecture, where we believe quite strongly that collective efforts actually can jump generations. Some of these things that we're dealing with will be standing for hundreds of years. Some of them take tens and tens of years to actually produce and create. So they're not driven by me or by Craig in any means. They are driven by the collective efforts of continuous state of reinvention. They're being driven by the way we see society, how we intellectually and practically can decipher society and put it back together again as type of architecture. And by doing that, we have to keep evolving. That's why we're spread into so many different professions like product design, design, art, interior architecture, urbanism. And spreading our wings so wide gives us an influence from many sides of the mountain, if I may say, which then gives us the understanding of the mountain in 3D. Because we're relying on the person coming up the mountain from the backside and us, some others coming up from the front side, you're relying on the story from the person who climbed the mountain from the other side. So then all of a sudden, you, although you have only climbed it from one side, have a 360-degree understanding of the mountain. And that's how architecture works. Even though you cannot be part of everything we're dealing with, you have to have this 360-degree understanding. So Snøhetta to me is this fantastic botanical gin, full of herbs, full of different kind of spices and really beautifully connected into this clear drink, but it's still a gin. So we're still dealing with physical environments through design, architecture, art, but at the same time, we're full of spices.